We're now going to begin reading the Gemara, the second part of the Gemara that begins right after the two dots. Is a continuation of the last topic of reclining, of leaning while drinking. Perakdan lo shmeh seba. A person who's lying down on his back, is not considered to be heseba. That's not called reclining. Rashi says, Perakdan panav klape malav shochev alachorav. His face is facing upwards and he's lying on his back. So he's literally laying on your back. That's not called leaning. Continues the Gemara. Hasebas yamin lo shma haseba. Leaning on your right side, that's also not considered haseba. That's also not considered to be leaning or reclining. And you're not yotze, the mitzvah of drinking or eating while leaning if you're leaning to the right side. Says the Gemara further. V'lo od ela shema yakdim kana leveshet. V'yavo lidei sakana. Furthermore, the Gemara says, not only that, but when you lean to the right side, maybe your windpipe will come before precede your esophagus. In other words, the food will go down your windpipe instead of going down your esophagus is normally when you swallow the food, and you'll choke. And you're going to come to danger. Rashi says, the reason why leaning onto the right side is not considered to be good reclining, good leaning, is because on the right side where you need to eat. And Rashbam continues explaining Shemayaktim apraktan kai. So Rashbam is about to give two different explanations as to this line of the concern of leaning and reclining. We said we're afraid you're going to choke. Is that going on the first halacha, the halacha of praktan, or is that going on the second halacha, the halacha of leaning on your right side? The first explanation Rashbam is going to give is going on laying on your back. And the second is going to be leaning on your right side. So let's read it inside. Shemayaktim apraktan kai. It's going on relying on your back. That's when we're worried about you choking. Shemitoch savaro shocha achorav shafui kovea hasosim espi hakana. That when you're laying on your back, since your tzavar, your back is laying backwards, shafui kova, the covering, the flap, the epiglottis, sosim espi hakana, it covers the windpipe. Niftach, what normally covers the windpipe, will open. Umiskapel lamala, and it will fold upwards. The kana poshet lamala, and what will be closer will be the windpipe. Hamachal nichnas l'socho, and the food will enter in v'nechnak, and that you'll choke. Kach pirish Rabbeinu Shlomo. That's the explanation of Rashi. Bekashali, says the Rashbam, I don't understand this. Amailo samche. Lahai v'lo asebas yamin. If that's the case, then why did the Gemara not put that line, the concern of Shemayaktim, one line earlier, and not have it going after the case of the leaning on the right side? It should have been said right after Praktan lo shmeh seba. It should have said, oh, by the way, also we're worried about you choking Shemayaktim kana levashet. Instead of it saying it after the case of leaning to the right side. So says the Rashbam, it must be an explanation as to why you can't lean to the right side. Rabasai Pirshu Shemiyakti Kana Leveshet Have Al Tzad Yamin. My rabbis explain that it's referring to the reason why you cannot lean on your right side. Why? Because if you lean on your right side, the covering, the epiglottis, which normally covers the windpipe, will open on its own. Geshu Mata Klapi Yamin, when you lean to the right. And if you're going to lean to, if food will enter the windpipe, you'll choke and it'll be dangerous. Because food and drink is only supposed to go through the esophagus and not through the windpipe. That's why I think it's going on the case of leaning to the right side, since it's closer to that line in the Gemara. Okay, continues the Gemara. The Gemara continues describing and discussing halachas about a woman leaning, and then we'll go on to a case of a father and son, followed by a Rebbe and a Talmud, followed by the case of a shamish leaning. Let's see this following four cases. Isha alita bala lo shma seba. A woman who is next to her husband, lo baya seba, does not need to lean. V'im isha chashuvahi tzricha seba. If the woman is an important woman, then a prominent woman, then she is required to lean. She has to lean. Says the Rashbam, why should it be that a woman is exempt from leaning? The The first explanation is because of she's apprehensive, she's worried being near her husband, she may be a little fearful of him, fufalo, and she's subservient to him. Again, I don't know if that's the case now, but that certainly was the case then, and therefore a woman would not feel comfortable laying that way in front of her husband on a couch while eating that way, and therefore she is exempt. How Befarish B'Shiltos Rashbam says the lav dar chayu d'nashi lemizga. Rashbam brings another explanation. A second explanation has nothing to do with being afraid of the husband, but rather it's because it's just not the way. Women normally did not sit that way when they were free, and therefore there would not be a way to show freedom to recline that way, since that's not normally the way they do it. Back to the Gemara. The Gemara says, again, with Isha Chashuva, if she's a prominent woman, obviously, we'll see another number of explanations, but then generally, they would recline that way even in the presence of their husbands, and that's why they would still be obligated to lean. The Gemara continues, Ben Eitzel Aviv. What about a son by his father? Ben Eitzel Aviv by a Seba. A son by his father is required to lean. What about the idea that you're supposed to be fearful or have reverence to your father? Says the Rashbam, Ben Eitzel Aviv, he's not so subservient to his father. He doesn't feel worried or uncomfortable laying on a seat, reclining in front of his father, as many of you probably do on Sundays when you're laying on the couch watching the game. And therefore, that is considered to be an appropriate way of a table, and therefore you can sit that way and recline that way at the Seder. Ibailahu, the students ask the question, Talmid Eitel Rabbo Mai, what's the halacha? Can a student, when he's at the Seder by his Rebbe, what's the halacha? Is he allowed to, or is he required to lean? Tashma, come and listen to the following proof. Abaye ki havinan beimar zaginan arbirka adadi. The Gemara says that Abaye said, when we were the students in the yeshiva of Rabbah, we would lean on each other's knees. That's a quote. So there seems to be a proof. It would seem to prove that, look, you see that they were by their Rebbe, they were by Rabbah, and nevertheless they were still leaning, seemingly a proof. The Gemara continues, Ki asinan lebei Rav Yosef. When we came to the yeshiva of Rav Yosef, Amar lan lo tzrichisu. He said to us, you don't need to lean while drinking. Why? As it says in the Mishnah, Mora Rabcha Kamor Shemayim. For the Mishnah says, the fear or the reverence for your teacher should be like the fear of Hashem, the reverence for Hashem, and therefore you should show extra respect, and you should not recline, you should not lean while eating or drinking in front of your Rebbe. It's not the way to show disrespect. And that's what he quotes from a Mishnah. Okay, the Gemara asks a question. Oh yeah, is that true? You're not supposed to lean in front of your Rebbe. Meisve imakol adam meisev afilu talmid etel Rabbo. The Brisa challenges the Gemara, saying we know that a student seemingly has to recline by his Rebbe, because the Brisa says if a person reclines around everyone, if he leans around everyone, then even if he's by his Rebbe, he has to still lean. So seemingly is a proof that even though a person teaches you Torah, you still would lean in front of them. So this is the Gemara, no kitanya hi bishulya denagri. When was that Brisa taught? Regarding what? That's talking about someone who is a Talmud, who's a student to a carpenter, but not a student to Torah, because there you need extra respect and extra reverence. But if you're a student to a carpenter, meaning he's teaching you carpentry, then we would be exempt, then you would be still obligated to lean. Final piece of the Gemara deals with a case of a waiter. What about a waiter? Ibailahu. Shamashmai. What's the halacha regarding a waiter? What's the halacha? Should he have to recline? Should he have to lean while eating and drinking? Obviously, he's serving you. Does he still have to do that for the Seder? This is probably relevant for waiters in hotels for Pesach. Tashma. Come and learn. Here's the following brisa, the proof. A shamash, a waiter who leans while eating a kazayas of matzah, he is yotze. The Gemara then explains, Mesiv ein lo mesiv lo. It seems to be only if he leans he's yotze, but not if he doesn't lean. If he doesn't lean, doesn't recline while eating that matzah, he's not yotze. Shmamina by a seba shmamina. We see from here, in conclusion, we learn from here that a waiter does in fact need to lean.